And here we are. All right, it's Chatterbox Bengals. That was probably a little bit too eager for what has been going on. 34-13. We're under the 2-minute warning. Bengals are, it looks like they might, they're going to score in some capacity. I don't know what that's
They're cooked. That's what they are.
But this game is over. They gave up 30-plus points, scored 3 points. Obviously, everyone knows the story about Joe Burrow getting hurt in the second quarter. We'll talk all about that when the game starts. But here we are, Reed Mouse here with Game On. Game On. I'm happy to be here. I'm filling in late scratch like Jake Browning. This is the Reed Mouse game just as much as it is the Jake Browning game, so I'm happy to be here. If you don't know anything about me, obviously I do off the bench, and once again, I am the world's greatest pouter, and I will be pouting through the entirety of this show. So here we go. Get in there, Trent Irwin. All right. Little short. Game on. You're feeling a little deflated. I mean, we had a little pre-show, and you were I think you're feeling pretty much about the same way I feel at this very moment.
How can you find the words to describe what's going on, right? How can you put it into words?
It's pretty shitty. I don't know. It's a kid's show. We're not allowed cussing here, but it's pretty shitty is what it is, Game On. Yes. That's the word that I have. Is Jake Browning?
Everything feels like
Jamar Chase to score.
There's no hope. That's what it feels like.
Well, that's what it felt like immediately, right? And we'll get into all of that in the show about what it felt like when Joe Burrow went down, but it's almost like this team, this whole city, this whole franchise feeds off of one human being. And whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, it's gotten us to places that we haven't been in 30 years. But at this very moment, when he goes down and can't play, it feels almost like there was no hope whatsoever. But Jake Browning completes his first ever career passing touchdown. So hats off to you, Jake. I hope you take this one in. You did something tonight. You certainly did.
Is that the Jamar Chase one? First and goal?
Yep.
All right. Good for him.
Makes it 20-34. And listen,
so you're saying it's not over yet, is what you're saying. It's not over yet.
Oh, brother. Listen, here's the thing about it is we talked about Jake Browning, and well, once again, I don't want to tease everything that we're going to talk about in this show, but there was a lot of talk about Jake Browning, a backup quarterback, when Joe was hurt through the first 4 weeks of the year. And should we play the backup? Should we play the backup and everything like that? And Jake has come in, and I think, Game On, you said it best in our pre-show. You said he looks like a backup quarterback. And, yeah, I mean, can this guy win a game in the NFL? Maybe.
He can win games.
Sure.
Yeah. Any backup quarterback can win games in the NFL, but
sure, if we had on
this, he's not ready for NFL. This is his very first game in the NFL, right? They can throw the kitchen sink at him. They can throw all these different disguises. They can act like guys are going to blitz when they're not. It can throw him off of his game and make him, think that they're going to drop in the coverage when they just sit. There's a bunch of stuff that can go on in order to confuse Jake Browning right now, and he's probably our worst case scenario starting at this point.
All right. Listen, can Jake Browning win games? Yeah, if the Bengals suddenly scheduled like Heidelberg Student Princes and Mount St. Joe on the schedule, then maybe they got a shot. But against an NFL defense, who knows? The Ravens are going to need this one out, and it's probably going to be 34-20 is going to be the final score. I mean, God damn, what a deflating feeling. What an absolutely deflating feeling. We thank you all for being here, by the way. We'll get to the show. I mean, are the Bengals gonna try and call timeouts? Or are they gonna let this thing just go down? Are they gonna show a little life?
I need some Z Brazilianaire magic.
Zebra said,
I need Burrow back next week.
Jake Browning is a Make-A-Wish quarterback. That's actually how the Bengals could get in the news. So with Joe Burrow out, we will provide Make-A-Wish kids. If their wish wants to be an NFL quarterback, we will let them be a quarterback for the next few weeks. Because what's it matter anyways?
I think though, before we get into the show, I think this is going to force Zach Taylor to have to incorporate the run. He's going to have to figure out a way to go under center, incorporate the run, mix in a focal point of the offense, and offset it with the pass to help out Browning. A lot of play action. And that's what they did in the preseason, and it was working for a little bit for Browning. Like, he looked good in some spots. So that's what they're going to have to do.
All right, so the final is going to be 34-20. Bengals fall to 5-5. Ravens are going to go to 8-3. Let's go ahead and run that track, and let's do this show.
Let's do it.
I can't hear you. All right, game on. 34-20 was the final score. Somber mood here in the city that never sleeps, Cincinnati, the Queen City, whatever you want to call it. But that was the final score. Let's go ahead and take you through what happened in this one. So Baltimore Ravens get the ball first. I don't know if that surprised you because it was my belief that the Bengals always get the ball first. The other team's always going to defer. Bengals would always want the ball, but they won the toss, decided to give the ball to the Baltimore Ravens. It ended up in just a bully of a drive, 9-play, 75-yard drive that led to the Baltimore Ravens going up 7-0. Bengals answered back with a field goal. They put one through the uprights. It was a 50-yard field goal. Evan McPherson immediately get a punt, get the ball back. Then the Bengals miss a field, or actually that was the punt. Then it back and forth. Bengals eventually do get in field goal range, 53-yarder for Evan McPherson to make it a 7-6 ball game. He just pulls it a bit to the left. At that point, they do get the ball back. That's when Joe Burrow throws it in the flats after a long drive to Joe Mixon for a touchdown. Immediately, I started getting texts. You started getting texts. We saw the tweets. Is Joe Burrow hurt? We saw the risk cast this week. It appeared to be that exact thing, right? It appeared to be that exact thing. He never sees the field of play again, and from there it all kind of spiraled out of control. Baltimore Ravens go up 14-10. Then they score one more time, 21 points in the first half. Everyone talks about how great this Bengals defense is, or at least the people in my life, and they give up 21 points in the first half to the Baltimore Ravens. I think you and I are going to disagree about the Bengals defense here later on. They come out of halftime. Jake Browning leads the Bengals down the field. They get a field goal. They come up short of 6. They make it a one-score game, but that was pretty much the last hope that the Bengals had because from that point forward, the Baltimore Ravens marched downfield, got a field goal, got a touchdown. Bengals get a late score to make it 34-20. Jake Browning completes his first ever touchdown pass to Jamar Chase to make it 34-20, but that was pretty much the end of the game. And here's what we're going to do. You see on the J-Bar that there is pray for Burrow. Here's the thing, guys. That's not hyperbole. We're going to get together. God, Allah, Hindu gods, whoever the Mormons believe in, we're all going to come together and we are going to pray. So put those hands together. If you're going to bed, put your knees on the ground beside your bed and pray that Joe Burrow is healthy because this city needs him. I need him. Game On needs him. I'm being dead serious. We're going to pray for Burrow. And I'm going to let you in on a little news. I'm here in the studio, as you can see the play that almost saved the season. Drew Sample's hurdle for a touchdown. I'm having a beer because I don't know if you drink or not, but if you haven't taken up drinking yet, today seems like a good part. Game on.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
Let's break into this game. What were your immediate thoughts of the game? There's a lot to talk about. We can talk about this defense. We can talk about Jake Browning. We can talk about Joe Mixon. Obviously, we can talk about the injury that is Joe Burrow, offensive line, penalties, a lot of stuff we're going to get to. What was your overall reactions of this game?
This sucks. I wish I had my quarterback right now.
Yeah.
I thought it would be close with him. Without him, you see the difference. It wasn't. And I felt like the Bengals early on were incorporating the run, establishing the run. They were averaging like 8.4 yards per carry in the first 2 drives. Zach Taylor finally ate into that, and that's when we actually had that touchdown drive that made it 10-7. That could have been really something that could have kept the Ravens on their heels. Hey, is Joe going to throw it or are we going to run the football? And we were gashing them up the middle of the field and on the right side. It sucks. It absolutely sucks because the team could have gone 6-4, 10-day rest, go up against the Steelers next week, and now we're kind of facing something where we're 5-5. The playoffs look bleak with no Burrow, and you kind of got to wonder, where do we go from here? Where do we look to next? That's what I gathered from this game.
Yeah, where do we go next? Here's the thing. I tweeted this out before the game. The Bengals coming into that game had a 44% chance of making the postseason. If they won it, it shot up to like 68%. If they lost it, which they obviously did, it drops to 30%. If Joe Burrow's not on the field, you might as well put that as a big old goose egg at this point.
Yeah,
with the schedule going forward, not a single team at this very moment under 500 for the rest of the schedule. It all doesn't matter. And here's the thing: a lot of talk about last week and how inconsistent the offense looked, and I think that was a tired take. Because since Joe Burrow came back, since he, quote unquote, came back, which I think was the Arizona Cardinals game, he played for the first 4 games. He wasn't Joe Burrow. You saw it. I saw it. We all knew it. Leaving Nashville, I was at Nissan Stadium. That wasn't the Joe Burrow that I've watched over the past 3 years. That wasn't the guy that, has lifted this city's spirits so high. And since that week, he looked like himself, right? Scrambling in and out of the pocket, making the deep pass. Was he perfect? Absolutely not. Did the offense go a little quiet for 5-6 drives against the Houston Texans? Sure. Go show me the best teams in the NFL and show me a complete game where they're marching it down the field every single drive. The thing is this isn't college. When you play against these NFL defenses, you're going to get stopped from time to time, and they just really didn't have the flow. They still scored 27 points in that game. Since Joe Burrow has been healthy, I've brought this point up, the Bengals had averaged 27 points a game over the past 5 weeks. That's good for a top 5. The reason that people believe that the Bengals have a great defense, although some of the naysayers go, oh, he doesn't show up in big games, is because we do have a good offense. I said defense. We do have a good offense, right? It's been top 10 for the past 2 years since Joe Burrow's been healthy. And now with him gone, it all just evaporated right before our eyes. And here's the thing. Game on. I talked about how you felt deflated. I started pouting immediately. The city on Twitter, the city in reality, the team on the field in Baltimore, it looked like the wind got taken out of the sails the second that 9 left the field.
It's the same feeling as 2020. When what happened in 2020, where I think it was Jonathan Allen, pushes, who was that? Michael Jordan back into his knee, and he makes the completion on the backside when you see Burrow agonizing in pain. I think the city all felt for him. The team was absolutely deflated after that point. They did not win the game. They were up 9-7 at that time. The Bengals were up 10-7 in this game when he got hurt. And you just, after that happened, you're like, there's no shot. There's no shot because your team playing with that much emotion and that much passion, once your quarterback goes down like that, your starting quarterback goes down, you still have to lock in, you still have to focus, but you're not as sharp as you want to be. You're not as calculated as you want to be. You're not as in it as you want to be because you really want to know, is my quarterback okay? Can he go the rest of the season? Are we still good? Is he going to come back? And that next drive, the defense gave up 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
One of them phantom holding call, in my opinion. I don't know if you consider that a hold on a
terrible. And listen, I'm not Game On. Trust me, I'm the last person to complain about officials. Truly, I made fun of a lot of people for making fun of officials and umpires during the summer. I'm the last person. Those were terrible calls, absolutely terrible.
Well, this one's the Ravens touchdown, right? The Awuzie hold where Beckham gets the 68-yarder. But then the following one,
correct.
The following one, this is just a tip by Jermaine Pratt. Aguilar, right place, right time, catch, able to get the touchdown after the catch. These big plays, they've been gashing the defense on the back end and coverage. We just haven't been as solid as we need to be. Everybody was watching the ball on that play versus actually playing their man. Chidobe Awuzie stops, and he thinks, maybe he can make a play on the football. Instead, his stopping allowed Aguilar to be able to continue his run and really gain, extra yards after the catch. So
a couple people
that was deflating.
This whole game, listen, Game On. This whole if we could get a tip jar and talk about deflating or like I'm pouting right now. Anytime I throw the word pout, if we had a quarter for every time that we talked about how deflating this game was, you and I could retire. We could go on cruises every single week of our life. We could just, I don't know if you have a family. I don't know what you got, but we could just kiss our family goodbye, and you and I could ride off into the sunset and go to every single Bengals game. Here's the thing: is a couple people in the chat talking about, according to Zach Taylor, this looks like a sprained wrist. What the hell does that mean? He showed up. So here's the thing: is will the Bengals get in trouble? He practiced every week, but don't you have to designate injuries? Game On?
Dude, but he practiced in full, so the injury may not have come up until last night, right? Like, he might not have felt anything until last night. Even though it's a sprained wrist, if he's out for 2 or 3 weeks, the season is still cooked, because at that point you're 5-7 and you need every game leading into the end of the season. And your quarterback, oh, by the way, could re-injure his sprained wrist.
Right.
So
wouldn't that be a come full circle moment where, beginning of the year we're talking about a sprained calf, and now we're having the same arguments. Should we play Jake Browning or should we play Joe Burrow with the season on the line?
I really want something from Trace. I want something from Trace, Reed, and I want you to get it from him for me. I need him to look at the performance tonight from Jake Browning and say, okay, with a week's worth of preparation, is this something serious that the Bengals could win a football game with? To me, no. Absolutely not. All right? And I need him to be serious about that, because he needs to understand the lift that Burrow gives this team. Without him, this team is not the same team. They're not even close to being anywhere near the top 10. They might be a bottom 5 team, honestly, without Joe Burrow at quarterback.
Yeah, that's the thing is we over the past 2 years, certain people have, and there's a lot of people, a lot of naysayers, people in the division, rivals like Chiefs fans and Bills fans have looked at our team and said, this isn't a real contender. Right? This team isn't for real. What you're doing is all luck. And I would argue it's not luck. It's a certain guy that's on the field. And Joe Burrow is the heart of this team. And I mean that quite literally. You look at a human body. Does the heart do everything? Does the heart filtrate your food and your liquids, and does it move? Does it think like the brain? No, it doesn't do all that. But if you don't have the heart, none of it works. That's Joe Burrow to this team. That's Joe Burrow to this damn city. There's a reason, and people make fun of us Bengals fans. I'm using us, the royal us, everyone, all 72 viewers that are watching this on YouTube right now. They make fun of us because of how much we praise Joe Burrow, and how can you blame us? This is a guy that came into our franchise and immediately gets hurt the first year, but from really the first snap that he took, you're like, this guy's for real. He's coming off the greatest season in college football history. And in his first healthy season, takes us to a place that we didn't even think was possible. Took us to the Super Bowl. Had us seconds away from winning it. And how does he repeat? Everyone's telling us you're not going to win the division. That was all fluke. Well, we go back to the AFC Championship game. So then people start respect us a little bit until Joe Burrow gets hurt, and then we start 1-3, and people go, well, you guys just aren't very good. Water has found its level. And then Joe Burrow gets healthy. You rip off 4 out of 5 games. You get to 5-4. You have a Thursday night football game against a division rival who looks like might be the best team in the damn NFL. And you look pretty good for 4 drives. You give yourself 3 scoring opportunities. You miss on 1. You score on 2. You take a 10-7 lead. And then you never see 9 again on the field, and that was it. That was it, J Money.
Yeah. Last week against the Texans, right? We're down 20-10, and you have to have it. You have to get back in this game somehow. And Burrow throws a 64-yard laser to Jamar Chase over the top of the DB and the safety. It's 20-17. The Bengals are right back in that game. The fourth quarter hasn't even begun yet. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, this game. Before that point, they were like, can we even get back in this game? And then the defense gives up what they do. But what the point there is, you're always in the game with Joe Burrow. Always. Even at the end of that game when the defense made the pick and we brought us back to the 5, Joe was able to score the touchdown there. Mixon was able to run that touchdown in. But then the ensuing drive, you're able to stop C.J. Stroud. Burrow gives you a 64-yard pass to Tyler Boyd, puts you in red zone, right?
Right.
And then he puts the ball right on Tyler Boyd in order to win the game, right? With any other quarterback on this roster, that doesn't happen. You don't come back down 10 points with Jake Browning. The defense has to play at an elite level in order for Jake Browning to win. And let me say this, Reed, because you didn't mention it, and it might be masked, and once again, we have to bring it up. The Bengals didn't create any turnovers in this game. They didn't create any turnovers in that Ravens first game, and the Ravens were able to control time of possession, run the football on us effectively, be able to get what they want in the pass game. In both games, they also scored on the very first drive. In these other games where the defense has only given up, let's say, 24 to 27 points, they have 12 turnovers in the past 5 games. Before this one, 12. Some of those the offense has benefited off of. So I don't
No doubt.
I'm not with you in terms of, hey, this is an elite offense. I don't think so. I think it's a middle of the pack offense, and I think the defense helps it out a little bit. However, I will say this defense is a lot worse than what they're given credit for. Like the amount of turnovers that they get is really masking the true issues of this defense. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. This defense, there's a lot wrong with this defense. A lot.
What has gone wrong year over year? I have a hard time believing that it's strictly the safeties. And I know that's the biggest omission, right? Jesse Bates, Von Bell, they move on to new teams. Jesse Bates was an elite safety. Von Bell was a very good safety. Dax Hill has come in. He was our first-round pick last year. And he's come in and he's played at a very high level. He truly has. Nick Scott, obviously, if you look at the PFF grades, which aren't the end-all, be-all, he's dead last. But I still have a hard time believing that the safeties, which, in my opinion, are the least valuable position on the defensive unit, are the reason that this defense, which was a top 10 defense in scoring a year ago, is bottom of the tier this year. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time believing that. So where do you think that the biggest defense, and you said it best, you said it last week, you reiterated just in your last point, turnovers are masking the problems with this defense. Another 150-yard rushing game for the Ravens. They're one of the best rushing teams in the league. That's to be expected against this defense. But where are these faults coming from?
Yeah, I'll tell you. On the defensive line, at the backup 3-tech position, you have Zach Carter. He's terrible. He's like bottom 5 in rush and I think bottom 10 in run defense in the league out of all D tackles in the league, right?
Right.
Other than that, right, same defensive line, not getting enough pressure outside of Hendrickson. Who is not getting enough pressure? Osai, Murphy, these other guys that were supposed to be helping out. Sample's doing a little bit now, but these other guys really are not helping enough. On that one play where Lamar was able to pretty much run for whatever he wanted and he thought that maybe he might get hit, but he didn't. Everybody was clogged. Nobody could get off their block to save their lives, and he was just standing there maybe about 12 seconds until he finally moved and got the first down. This defense, the defensive line is not what we thought it was.
No doubt.
The second piece of it is they're terrible in run defense and playing contain on the outside without Sam Hubbard. Sam Hubbard is the best run stopper in the league. He has, I think, before he got injured, he had like 28 run stops.
Yep.
On top of that, he's one of the best tacklers and one of the best players playing contain in the league. He's the reason that the Bengals had such an upside against Lamar Jackson, being able to keep him in the pocket if he rolls outside. That's Sam Hubbard's job. Get him down. He gets multiple sacks usually against the Ravens because Lamar Jackson. So because of that style that he plays with, right? On the outside, at the corner position, we've been missing tackles this year in space. A lot of missed tackles from us in that first drive. Keaton Mitchell got the ball for the very first time, and I think they ran that outside zone toss play.
Yeah.
He broke a tackle on CTB, and then he broke a tackle on Dax Hill before Dax eventually ran back to him and got him down. That's been the Bengals this year. Haven't been able to be disciplined enough to stay in your lanes, to be able to tackle in space and just get guys down. I think we're concerned too much with trying to strip the football, create a turnover, all of that. We're not being disciplined enough in our tackling, and it's showing because these teams are getting, when we could have this player down, right? Mm-hmm. Now he's got 20 extra yards.
We saw the final offensive play against the Houston Texans
against Noah Brown. Yeah,
right there.
Jermaine Pratt went for the football on that play, and he got the glove instead.
Listen, it doesn't matter what Lou Anarumo draws up on a board if the boys don't tackle, if the boys don't wrap up and do their job. And Jermaine Pratt maybe has earned the right to go for those strips, has earned the right to go after the ball because he has generated those turnovers. But at the same jest, it's got to be just the simplicity of the defense, and you got to wrap up. You got to
get back to the fundamentals. Got to get back to the fundamentals.
The first hit the elite defenses in the league. The first hit puts them on the ground, right? Mm-hmm. That's the elite defense. You could say, yeah, they got great pass rush, right? They put the pressure on. Yeah, they can generate turnovers, which the Bengals have done this year. Yeah, they lock down the corners. But the elite of the elite, the Super Bowl caliber defenses, what they do is when they get a shoulder on an offensive player with the ball, they put them on the ground. They wrap them up. And this is the NFL. People are slippery. And obviously the Ravens have a really good offense, and I don't think their offense has honestly deserved I think it's almost gone a little understated this year. But it's all the same. One thing, we've talked about the defense a lot. I do want to talk, because we kind of skimmed over this, about Jake Browning. You know,
we can talk about Jake Browning.
Yeah, you said that Jake Browning, there's no hope there, and that's our last topic on the J-Bar. I don't want to go into that yet, but Jake Browning comes out. He's put in an incredibly difficult situation, right? He's playing the number 1 scoring defense, the number 2 defense in yards. And he comes out his first real NFL minutes. And he's charged with winning a divisional game in the best division in the National Football League.
Yep.
And you know what? He showed some spunk. They had some plays, right? He made a decent throw. He kind of scrambled away. He generated time in the pocket because heaven knows this offense won't give you time authentically. That's been the biggest problem about this offense this year, as it has been the last 2 years. But Jake Browning, as you put it best, he played exactly like you expect a backup quarterback. He played exactly like a guy that has been in the National Football League for 5 years now, 6 years, however long he's been, and has played 1 snap coming into this game, and that was a meaningless snap against the Cleveland Browns in Week 1 of this year. That's how he played. He didn't win the backup position for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was just the best of the worst options.
I think when the Bengals think about the backup position, right? They usually think of somebody who has a cerebral mind that's able to help out their starting quarterback, see things that maybe they're not seeing, or be able to reiterate things that they see in coverage that the quarterback needs to hit on. Brandon Allen was really great with that, with Joe Burrow, and they may have found that in Jake Browning as he's come along. The other thing that they really like about Browning is the mobility, right? Burrow has that escape ability. Browning shows a little bit of that. The arm is not – there's no wildly talented arm there. It's actually he can maybe throw it, 15, 20 yards accurately. Maybe on a good day, right? But once you reach 20, 25, 30, that shit is a duck. So it's nowhere near an accurate ball. And so that's what makes him a backup quarterback.
Right.
He's just not accurate deep at all. And you have to be in order to be a starting quarterback in this league. The Bengals can work with that, but can you win consistently with that? You might win 1 or 2 games, Reed, in the next 5, but you're not going to – you're going to play your way out of the playoffs by the time Burrow gets back, right? If I were to say over the next 3, maybe they could win 1. Maybe they could win 1. But you're still 5-7 now, and you're out of the playoff race. Agreed?
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I mean, I talked about it. When 5-5, they lose this game, they're down to 30% in the playoff standings in a very tough division. Don't play a team at this very moment for the rest of the year above 500. Yeah, I mean, Jake Browning as the quarterback of this team can't get into the postseason. And I saw someone in the chat put in, listen, can Jake Browning win games for the Cleveland Browns? Yeah, sure. PJ Walker did. DTR is going to win a couple games if he stays the starter. Can he win games for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Sure. Yeah.
They got a backup quarterback starting right now.
Right. They got Kenny Pickett who opts to play for 2 drives a game. That just happen to be the last 2 drives of the entire ball game.
He's got 2 touchdowns in the last 5 games.
Can Jake Browning win a game for the Baltimore Ravens? Sure. They've got free agent running backs. They had no running backs coming in this year. Not a guy on the roster, and they've got the best run offense in the league. And Lamar's incredible. Deshaun, when he plays well for the Browns, is incredible. I'm not taking anything away from them, but heck, game on, I think you and I could go out there and we can hand the ball off for a couple quarters.
Absolutely.
Can Jake Browning win games with this offense? No. Can Jake Browning?
Not this O-line.
Not this O-line. There's few guys, and that's the true testament to Joe Burrow, is that he's able to make this happen with this line.
I'll tell you something about Joe Burrow.
Tell me, game on, baby. Come on.
The quickness of Joe Burrow's processing is what helps this offensive line stay middle of the pack, right? Any other quarterback, if they're waiting 3.5 seconds to be able to make a throw, this offensive line is not holding up for him. It's It's not set up well for any other quarterback to be under the helm. Only Joe Burrow, right? Maybe you could go under center to help them out if you were to be successful in the run game and make that a focal point in order to take pressure off your quarterback and play the play action game and maybe do some boots to help out this offensive line. But you're not going to have another quarterback process the way that Burrow does. He is currently the quickest processor in the league. I think he gets rid of the football in like 2.32 seconds, which is wild comparative to the rest of the league. You don't have that in a backup quarterback. He's going to be a little bit more holding on to the ball, waiting for things to develop. They don't throw with anticipation. There's a lot of things that go into being a starting quarterback in this league that backup quarterbacks just don't have.
I think about a play today. I mean, you're talking about time in the pocket and stuff like that. You remember a play Lamar Jackson drops back, and I forget the exact moment of the game, but he had like 10 seconds back there. And the culmination of the play was he gets hit by, I believe, B.J. Hill, who might have been spying him, just certainly was around the line of scrimmage and hits him 2 yards behind the line after 10 seconds. If there's one thing I know, it's that Joe Burrow, if he has that exact same amount of time with Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd back there, at some point a throw is going to be made for a 30-yard gain, if not more. That's what I know. And
that's the saddest part about being a Bengals fan is somehow they've figured out the weapons, they've figured out the running back, they've figured out the quarterback, but they cannot figure out this goddamn offensive line. And if they could, man, we would be Super Bowl champions. We would. Even with a subpar offensive line, our quarterback can still deliver us an AFC championship and get to the Super Bowl by being sacked 70 times in one season and the most times ever in playoff history. He can get us to the Super Bowl with that shit. And somehow our coaching staff, our front office still can't figure out a way to get productivity in the highest way out of this offensive line. Just can't do it.
What is the problem there, right? I talked about this in the office a couple of days ago. We have gotten multiple guys, right? Because this team has almost punted, right, on drafting guys, developing themselves, drafting offensive linemen.
Yep.
We got Cordell Volson. We got Jackson Carman in the last couple of drafts, but they weren't high draft capital. Jackson Carman was.
He was. It was a second-round pick.
Honestly,
remember, the Carman conversation was if you deliver on Jamar, you have to get the right offensive lineman in the second round, and that offensive lineman has to slide into right guard immediately. And do you remember what week one was? Xavier Su'a-Filo was playing right guard instead of Jackson Carman.
Yeah.
Xavier Su'a-Filo started at right guard for us.
So that's the point. Is this team has gotten guys from other places, right? They said, listen, we clearly aren't doing this right. Let's go take guys from other places. Let's use the money that we have while these guys are still on a rookie contract, and let's protect Joe Burrow. Let's get enough time to get Jamar Chase open. So they went out and they got Lyle Collins, Kappa, Karras. This past year they got Orlando Brown. Guys that have been successful in other places.
Also, gap scheme-oriented guys. Different types of offensive linemen than what we've had in the past. Typically, we go for more athletic offensive linemen that can get outside, and you create those outside zone runs. Now we're moving to more of a philosophical interior offensive line. Guys that can get good push. They're big. They're meaty, right? They're going to give you a little bit more yards before contact, but you're not going to have a lot of outside run ability with them.
So, yeah, you get these guys that have been productive in other places, and they have shown signs of productivity at various moments over the past 2 years. But as a unit, it's not working. Where is the disconnect into this team has been good, or these players have been good in other places, but here they come to Cincinnati, and it's not the same. It's not the same.
I'll tell you easily what the problem is, and I've had this discussion so many different times with so many people within the offensive line community. The debate, is it the coach, is it the players, is it the coach, is it the players? Tell me who started at left tackle for the Browns last week.
I don't know.
Jaron Christian from Louisville. Okay? And you don't know that name, and you're not going to know that name, but he played really well. Why? Because his offensive line coach is Bill Callahan, and Bill Callahan has a system, a philosophy, a way of doing things, and he knows how to mentor these kids and put them in the right position in order to win, right? Frank Pollock doesn't do that. He hasn't done it yet. And we're still caping for this, man, thinking that he's going to change the run game because it was successful in Dallas. Oh, by the way, he got fired from the Jets later on after that Dallas position, and they were 27th in the league in overall offensive line. We still have not found our offensive line coach. That's what it comes down to for me. And a lot of the different things that Frank Pollock is teaching these guys, to me, is outdated teachings of the NFL on how to prepare, how to do things, how to get in the right stance, right form, right technique, everything. He can teach a little bit here and there, but honestly, like he's not a formidable offensive line coach anymore, and they need to move to somebody that will give them hope and also be able to help out in the drafting process. The past few offensive line coaches that have come in here and have drafted offensive lineman after offensive lineman to help out this front office and really like see these are the types of guys that we want to go for. Here's our board. We've been terrible. Absolutely awful. Hakeem Adeniji was bad. There was a kid from Ole Miss that didn't even play. He was a 7th-round pick, throwaway. Deontay Smith hasn't seen the field. He's injured half the time. Jackson Carman sucks.
Do you remember a center from Ohio State that we drafted in the first round?
Billy Price. Billy Price back in 2016 when I wanted Calvin Ridley or Lamar Jackson at that pick. We picked Billy Price, and it was terrible. And
How do you miss on a center in the first round?
Dude, I remember in the pregame, I'm talking about Frank Ragnow, and I was like, okay, it's got to be between Ragnow and Daniels. And instead we went with fucking Billy Price because he went to Ohio State. Like, there were so many misses on the offensive line. And the one guy that everybody capes for now, Cordell Volson, is still not good, people. He's average to subpar, a backup offensive lineman at best. But we cape for this guy so much. Enough is enough. They got to switch it out. And the offensive line coach, they got to make some changes in this offensive line. They got to get better because, honestly, I can't take Burrow being hit as much as he is. These injuries are a product of not only Burrow taking hits over a period of a season, but it's also, like the after throw hits that he takes. If this offensive line were better, if they gave him time, if he had, like you said, he'd be an MVP candidate. We'd be winning a lot of games. We'd be averaging a lot of points. And the real offense of Zach Taylor could take off. The offensive line is your biggest issue, and they still haven't solved it.
I'm at a loss for words for where this offensive line, where this franchise has continued to go wrong. It's like I'm in Groundhog Day, right? 2021, the problem has been the offensive line. Last year, the problem was the offensive line. And here we are in year 3 of this current iteration of the Cincinnati Bengals where they are quote-unquote contenders, and it's still the offensive line. And
offensive line has been a problem, Reed, since 2017. After they let Zeitler go and they let Whitworth walk, we were screwed because we replaced Zeitler. I can't even remember who. It was Bowling. Bowling came in.
Who, by the way, is still who just played tonight and is playing at a very high level.
Zeitler's still playing very well. And at left tackle, you remember who we got? We had Cedric Ogbuehi. And then we switched from him to Bobby effing Hart.
Bobby Hart. Would you rather be the owner of a Lonely Heart or a Bobby Hart?
So, yeah, it's been a long, long time since the Bengals have had a formidable. And remember, that offensive line in 2016, they were the number one offensive line in the league.
Right.
They didn't give up a
Right.
sack until like week 8.
Right.
They had 7 weeks of no sacks, barely any pressure. Andy Dalton was having an MVP-like year. We got to connect the dots here, people. A top 5 offensive line for Andy Dalton rendered him an MVP year. What do you think a top 5 offensive line would do for Burrow? MVP year.
Right. Yeah, this team, we wouldn't have to worry about people from the outside saying this offense isn't living up to expectations. Why isn't Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd living up to expectations? Well, it's not those 4 guys. It's not those 4 guys. It's the guys in front of them. And let's go ahead and transition to our last points. And, I mean, I think we've already painted this perfectly. Where's the hope? Hope was all in number 9, right? He lifted up this city. Where's the hope?
Reed.
That he comes back? That's the only hope.
A little bit of hope here is all off season. We talked about how could we create explosive runs to be able to help out Burrow in the passing game, right? We talked about that all off season. What would the Bengals do to add to this running back room to create those explosive runs? Well, they added Orlando Brown Jr., who's a good run blocker, right?
Right.
They had Alex Kappa, who's a great run blocker. They have Ted Karras, who's a good run blocker. At the right tackle position, they moved Jonah Williams to the other side, and he was a pretty good run blocker. He's been that way his whole career. So the Bengals need to now accentuate the run and help out this passing attack. That is how you have hope. The Bengals have to control. They have to be number 1 in time of possession. They have to control time of possession really well. They have to be able to establish the run in every game they play moving forward. And they have to take pressure off of Jake Browning and make things easier on him by scheming now their receivers open in order to help him out versus you relying on an elite quarterback to be able to anticipate the eliteness of your wide receivers to create separation and anticipatory throws the entire game. You have to scheme your guys open now. That's where you have hope.
Well, you labeled all our offensive linemen, right? And you said these guys have been productive run blockers in the past.
Yeah.
But what have these guys shown you this year or in years past to make you believe that this team can do what the Cleveland Browns do? That this team can do what the Pittsburgh Steelers do?
Yeah.
What these team can do to give hand the ball off 25 times and win a game 17-13. And that's not even talking about the defensive side of the ball, and we all know we already did that earlier. But what makes you believe that this team can play a sloppy game, can play a muddy game, and can win that game on? I don't see that. I don't see that at all.
Zach Taylor's done it in the past. Remember the Steelers game back in 2020?
With Ryan Finley?
He helped out Ryan Finley. They ran the read option. It ran the read. They ran the read. They ran the read option the entire game, right? And Ryan Finley either handed it off to Gio Bernard, who was gaining, I think, 5.5 yards per clip that night, or he was keeping it himself. He threw one time down the field to A.J. Green for a 30-yard pass, and it was an absolute duck, but he still caught it. So they accentuated the run in that game. Do you remember that? They accentuated the run, and they played great defensively because of it. The defense was trash that year. We were 30th in the league. We were terrible, right? But the defense played well because the Bengals were able to accentuate the run, keep them off the field, keep them fresh. And the Steelers, if they went 3 and out, the offense was just going to keep running the football, keep controlling time of possession. Pretty soon you're up 17-7, and now Ben Roethlisberger has to feel like he has to get it all now because now you're controlling line of scrimmage, offensively and defensively. You're able to get off the field. Like, there's a lot of factors into that, but the Bengals can go back to that with Jake Browning. They can accentuate the run. They can do play action to the pass. Jamar Chase is still healthy. He's still good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Tyler Boyd
Yeah.
is still good.
Yeah.
Trenton Irwin looked like he had somewhat of a rapport with Browning. So, that is something that they can utilize for sure. Need to get Charlie involved in the offense too, but the accentuation of the run is going to help out greatly, and that's where the hope comes into play.
I listen. You are a lot more optimistic than I, and I'm normally the light of optimism in this room. So I thank you for that. But I look at this team and I don't understand how you can comprehend this team winning an ugly game. Yeah, they did it a couple years ago in front of a national audience against a Steelers team that had, gone above and beyond their expectations. And who do we got this next Sunday is a Steelers team that maybe has
an ugly team, right? An
has
ugly
gone
team
above
that you need
and
to run
beyond
the
its
football
expectations.
against, eh?
But I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it. And that's the only option, right? At this point, because we're not gonna drop Jake Browning back 40 times. And who knows? I mean, it's a sprained wrist. Maybe Joe Burrow's back this Sunday. I think we haven't gone into the speculation on that. Where do you think the Joe Burrow injury puts us at timeline-wise? And we're all speculating. I haven't been on Twitter. I haven't been on X.com. There's a lot of people chatting. If you guys have seen something, Zach Taylor said it's a sprained wrist. If you guys have seen something, please tell us what you've heard. We haven't heard anything. What's the speculation on our quarterback?
Our quarterback is an absolute dog, and when he can grip a football, he will be back on the field. That's number one, right? So if it is like an ulnar nerve issue, I've had carpal tunnel in my hand. When your hand goes numb, it takes a couple of days for you to get that numbness out of your hand or that pain out of your hand, right?
Right.
It actually takes like a week and a half for you to fully get all function back in your hand and for you to be able to use it full strength. So if this is something with a nerve where he can't grip a football, and you already know, look, I know people are gonna are gonna hate me for this, but you already have the 9-inch hands. So
Little guys.
I mean,
I got little guys.
Look. In that week one when it was raining outside, which that was the first time it ever rained in his career, he couldn't grip the football. Yeah, couldn't grip the football. Remember that?
Yeah.
Early in the season. And also dealing with the calf. Now you're dealing with the wrist. And I don't know if you saw, Reed, they're still working. They're still giving him treatment on his calf. Like, yeah, he's running and all that, but he's still receiving treatment on his calf, which means that it is still something that he is still maintaining weekly. So when you factor that in, you factor the wrist in. This guy's a dog. He's absolutely going to play when he's ready. But if I'm the team, I hold him out at least 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks if that's what the injury calls for, and wait for him to get fully healthy if they want to. And give this a real shot. Like, try to really accentuate your run game before he comes back. And if you win 2 out of 3, you've got an opportunity to go for the wild card. If you lose 2 out of 3, you shut him down and the season's over and you work towards next year.
Yeah, you answered my question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, like, what do you do? Like if we're back to the calf injury conversation where we're dealing with an 80% Joe Burrow, what do you do? Right? Like, do you go out there and you play him and you try to keep this season's hope alive, knowing that not only is he dealing with a calf injury that could flare up at any moment, but now he's dealing with a wrist injury that could flare up and, certainly put him behind schedule. Now, both these injuries aren't linked to something bigger, right? You do run the risk of having a bigger injury just because he's not as mobile, he's not doing the same things that he normally could. But other than that, like, a wrist injury isn't gonna lead to tearing something in your elbow, right? A calf injury, I know people talked about a calf injury might lead to an Achilles. I don't think there's any science. I think that's all bull junk in my mind. But here we are. Do we just give up? Do we just not give up, but do we just say, hey, Joe, we're 5-5. We are dead last in the division. We are 1-5 in the conference, 0-3 in the division. We have at most a very small chance of making the postseason. here's what we want you to do. We want you to get better. We want you to get 100%. And then see what Jake Browning can do. Or do you just keep running him out there if he is 80%?
I think that he's going to try to force himself to play when he can grip a football. But the Bengals need to really take this seriously and say, okay, we've paid this guy a lot of money. We've got a lot invested. We don't want anything to be re-aggravated or things to get worse. And then we have to make an even worse decision, right? We don't want this guy to end up with like a broken wrist, right? Because he just kept throwing on a sprained wrist, and we've injured it even worse, right? We'd rather rest him, give him the opportunity to feel much, much better, and then come back close to 100% with the wrist, right?
Right.
The calf is always going to be an issue. You're always going to be given that treatment the rest of the season. So that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
I think people are going to – this is going to be a hot topic for the next week or two.
Right.
People are really – and your boy Trace responded. He said, hey, why are we thinking that Jake Browning had a 93 quarterback rating, played bad? It's wild to me. Trace, he got sacked 4 times in the second half. Imagine if he would have played the full game. It would have gotten sacked probably 8 times. He probably would have thrown a pick because of one of those pressures.
Right.
It's not good, dude. If you missed earlier on, we basically said when defense can disguise everything because you haven't seen actual live NFL football before, you're playing with fire, right? You're in a no-win situation where you're gonna make mistakes. He's never played the position in an actual NFL game.
Right.
There will be defenses that throw him. There will be defenses that throw him all different types of shit that he's never seen. So
it's, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jake definitely looked spunky when he came out there on the field today. Spunky is the best adjective I can give to Jake Browning at this very moment. Anything more, I think I'm going to cry thinking about not watching Joe Burrow for the next few weeks. But, yeah, I don't know. It's, if you ask me what to do, when his calf injury happened, I stood on a soapbox and beat it and said, Joe Burrow's our best chance to win games. Joe Burrow can keep this season alive until he's healthy. If you don't play him, you punt on the season. And I still hold that to be true. If you don't play Joe Burrow, you're punting on the season, especially this late, with only 7 games left, 5-5, 1-5 in the conference, 0-3 in the division. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, just if Joe Burrow can't play, this Sunday, then you say, look, next year, right? Maybe we get a 4th place schedule next year. Maybe we can get a better draft.
I don't know if they do it just after one Sunday, maybe 2 Sundays. I agree with that. Like if they're 5-7, but if they're 5-6, they might still try to bring him back. One more point I want to bring up.
If they go 5-6, they're now 1-6 in the conference. We'd have a tiebreaker over nobody in the conference in a wild card round.
Right.
And then
but the division won 4 games straight earlier in the season, right?
Right.
You agree? They won 4 games straight earlier in the season. They could do it again.
But you'd have to get to 11 wins.
They'd be 9-6. They'd be 9-6 if they won 4 straight from 5-6.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing
you'd be on the cusp
is if they lose next week, they'd be what? 1-6 in the division, right? That'd be what it'd be. Yeah, all six losses would be in the conference, not the division. So 10-7 seems incredibly improbable to get you into the postseason because you'd have the tiebreaker over nobody. Your only hope would be that you get the tiebreaker over the Indianapolis Colts or you beat the Jags and they fall out of contention and they fall to 10-7. That would be your only hope of getting in the postseason. So if they lose next week, what are we talking about?
No, I hear you. I think you have a better chance of beating the Steelers than you do the Jaguars.
Sure.
I think the Jaguars have a great offense, right? And their defense isn't so good, but they're still a really all around a good team overall, right? Good in special teams, good in staying disciplined. They don't allow the over the top play. Intermediate's going to be interesting. Browning playing them, but yeah, the Steelers are a much better option because I've already told you they have a backup quarterback plan. Right. So accentuate the run there, help out your offense, help out your quarterback, make it easier on him. One more point I want to bring up about Browning tonight. Burrow was pressured and sent blitz on less than 10% of his snaps, right? Browning was pressured at a 40% higher rate than Burrow tonight once he saw the field. Defenses are just going to blitz him, and they're going to say, Jake, make a play. Right. You have less time. You have less time. And we know backup quarterbacks take a lot longer to process than actual starting quarterbacks. It's a proven fact. So we'll see what happens, but we are where we are. It's the Jake Browning show here in Cincinnati.
Right. So I'll wrap up this show with my boss. He put a comment in there and said, so we're all admitting that this team just isn't good, I guess, because that's what I'm hearing. Jake Browning likely wins this division with the Browns and Ravens, but the Bengals, ellipses, oh no. Yeah. What if we've been telling you
Ravens and Steelers have
what have we been telling
defense?
What have we been telling you on this show since the season started? Trace has been the one, and I'm pointing right at you, Trace. You've been the one that's telling me how the defense wins games for Joe Burrow, how this team around him wins the game for Joe Burrow. It's Jamar Chase and T. Higgins getting open for Joe. It's the defense getting turnovers and winning the game for Joe when the Bengals fans know all along. It's been 9. This season, this team, this franchise, this city change dramatically. Not when Zach Taylor came to the team. Not when Joe Mixon came to the team. Not when Lou Anarumo came to the team. But when Joe Burrow came to the team. And then later on, Jamar Chase to help his boy out. That's what I know. It's been 9 all along. We've been telling you that. Everyone from outside, all the haters have been telling us that Joe Burrow doesn't show up in big games. Joe Burrow can't score in the postseason. It's always this defense getting Sam Hubbard 99-yard scooping scores. It's always been Patrick Mahomes faltering in the AFC Championship game. It's never been Joe. But I'm sorry to tell you, it has. It has always been Joe. And yeah, the team's good around him at times. But like the greats in this sport do, he makes the players around him better. Simple as that. Watch this team without Joe Burrow on the field, and you'll see what this team looks like, not to repeat the sentence I just said, but without Joe Burrow on the field. Game on.
Look no further, man, than Jamar Chase, dude. Jamar Chase had 2 catches for 12 yards and a touchdown. Right. Burrow would have never let that happen. He would have accentuated Jamar Chase in his offense. We would have called plays for him. Joe would have made sure that Jamar Chase could make something happen after the catch.
Right.
You're already seeing it. What more do you need to see? The guys that were elite with Burrow are not elite with Browning. That's simple as that.
Just, it's miraculous that I even have to stand on a soapbox and do this at times. There's a reason that people have seen this team go to a Super Bowl. There's a reason that this team have gone to the AFC Championship game, and we saw him go down in the second quarter today. So, game on. You got anything else before we wrap up this show?
Man, Bengals fans, it's going to be a tough one, but like 2020, we stuck it out, and the following year, we went to a Super Bowl. Trust, believe that we will right the ship and Joe Burrow will lead you to a Super Bowl and we will win that. Give it time. Stay with us and hooday.
Hooday. Listen, I said this at the beginning of the show. I'll say it again. You're still up. We still got 71 people in here. So when I end this stream, here's what I want you guys to do. This is a little bit of homework. I like to give homework. I never did it in school, but I like to give it out because it gives me a sense of power. My homework is for you guys. If you got a crucifix in your house, if you got whatever gods you believe in, whatever symbolism you have in your house, I want you to get on your knees. I want you to put your hands together, and I want you to pray for a certain boy from Athens, Ohio, that his wrist is okay, that his calf's okay. Because if you want to have fun on Sundays for the rest of this fall into early winter, if you want to have fun on Sundays for the rest of the next 7 years, then you got to pray for that guy to be all right. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap up this show. I'm going to go home. And I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray, Game On. This was a lot of fun, Game On. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Great time.
Yep, absolutely. All right. See you guys off the bench tomorrow at 10 to 12. I believe Kyle Caskey's going to do Caskey's Clicker tomorrow, so that's just some programming notes. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. Game On. We'll see you next time. See you, buddy.